In this video, I'm going to show you automations that can automatically create and publish content to LinkedIn and Facebook, Twitter and X, these image carousels to Instagram, and vertical videos for Instagram that take B-roll and add captions and AI voiceovers. And it's completely 100% automated, all by uploading some voice notes into a Slack channel that are imported into Airtable, where you can review all of the content and even review it before it's published. I'll explain how to build these automations step by step, how to create the images, the AI voiceovers, and the vertical videos with captions using JSON to video, and how to publish to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram Reels, and Twitter all automatically. I'll even explain how to record these audio notes so it's easy and chill so that you can start creating content and grow your business today. It's way more simple than you think. I'll show you how to build this all from scratch in Make.com Airtable, and you can have this up and running in the next hour. Now, before we get into actually building out all of these different automations and actually building out this Airtable system, I'm going to build out every single column live from scratch. Let's talk a little bit about how it works. It all starts in this Slack channel where I can simply record an audio note using this icon here. I simply talk very casually, and I tend to ask myself a couple of different prompts, which I'll show you later in the video, that just makes it super easy. There's no pressure. Sometimes I might even actually go out for a walk. And then once I'm done recording this audio, then an automation will look for those audio notes, and then it will download the file. It's going to create a transcript. It's going to extract the main points, and I'll show you why I do that later. And then it creates a row in Airtable right here in this table here called Speak, and then it simply drops that transcription into a row here. And so over a period of time, you're going to have a bunch of different transcripts in here from your Slack recordings. From there, the automation is going to continue to run and go down these 4 different paths to create posts for LinkedIn and Facebook, X and Twitter, the carousel images for Instagram, and then the vertical video for the Instagram Reel. And so if we jump back over to Airtable and then we jump to the social side, we can see the post that it generated right here. In this column here, we have the content, then we have the platform, the type of content it is, and then a status where we can review it, approve it, and then finally, once the automation runs, it'll mark it published. And we also just keep track of when it was created and last modified. Now, what's nice about the way I built this system is that you don't actually have to schedule any of this content and pick a publish date or anything like that. We have a automation in Airtable, and I'll show you how to build this from scratch, but it just runs at some interval that you give it. It could run once a day, twice a day, and then it's going to find a single post that is ready and approved. So once we approve something here, it's going to look for that content in this published view. You can see here we have this automation that is looking for an approved post. And then we have this script here, which is going to make a call to Make.com, which is going to then trigger the process to publish it to either LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Instagram Reels, or Twitter, really based off of this platform and where it's supposed to go. Some of the automations are more straightforward, like LinkedIn and Facebook, where we're simply publishing a text post. But for Instagram, we need to loop and create images for each page in the carousel. If I click here, we can see that example here. That's what this automation is doing before it finally publishes it. And then for the vertical videos and these Reels, this automation here is taking the content from this here, and then it's generating audio in my voice. It's uploading it to Google Drive, and then it's using this platform here, JSON to video, to take this B-roll video that I have here that's stored on Google Drive, where it adds the AI voiceover. Mistakes to avoid with AI in your business, and then it adds the captions. And then finally, after it builds that video, it automatically pushes it to Instagram. And X is pretty straightforward. It just posts one of the tweets that was generated here after you mark it approved. And again, you can review the content of any of these posts before you actually approve it for publishing, where this automation will then trigger and pull it through and send it to this automation, which creates the assets and does the publishing. And finally, the last piece of this automation, it simply goes back into Airtable and marks these posts that were approved for publishing to published, where then you can then track all of those in this view here. All right, so let's dig in. I'm going to build out these automations from scratch, but if you would like access to the entire blueprints to these automations, so you can simply import these automations just by clicking a file and uploading it and getting the entire thing built out for you to save a ton of time, as well as access to my Speak to Social Airtable base that has everything already built out, including these automations, make sure to check out my new community, the No Code Architects. I'm building out a huge template library of automations just just like this, and you'll be able to get access to these automations and the Airtable base. I've got a link that'll take you right to the community in the description below. So let's start from the very beginning. I'm now in Slack. If you don't have a Slack account, go ahead and create one, and then you can create a channel. I created one called Speak to Social, and then I simply used this little icon down here to record some audio notes directly into that channel. Now keep in mind, there's a super easy way to record these audio notes. You don't have to be prepared. You can go off the top of your head. You can even make mistakes, take pauses. ChatGPT will clean it all up. In fact, you can just grab your phone and go on a walk and record directly into the Slack mobile app. And these are the basic prompts that I give myself as I'm recording to produce good content through the automations. I just have a statement where I say, if you want this thing, then I talk about the main problem that people have attaining this thing. And then I talk a little bit about why I'm the authority to speak on this topic and the number one mistake people make. And then I talk about that there's a better way to do this thing that they want. And then finally, I give them the steps to achieve this thing. So that's a basic format that you can use. It makes it super easy, super low pressure, so you get that audio recording into Slack so that we can then continue on with the automations. So the first automation we need to add is for Slack. I'll go ahead and click that. And then we're going to watch for private channel messages. If you don't already have a connection, you'll need to add that. And then for input method, you can leave it as a list, and we're going to select a private channel. Notice you'll see mine here, Speak to Social. Go ahead and grab that. You can leave the limit on 2. You can go ahead and click OK. Now you will need to record a test audio, so go ahead and do that. Feel free to use this basic script and prompting method that I gave you earlier. If you have something real, it's going to make the output of our automations better. And then we're going to go ahead and run this automation manually. Go ahead and right click and say choose where to start. Go ahead and click choose manually. We'll be doing this quite a bit. It's going to load up the audio recordings that you have already recorded. Go ahead and pick that top one, click OK. And then down here, you can say run once. That's going to run the automation and pull in that first audio recording so we can continue to build out the automation. The next thing we need to do is actually download that audio file. So go ahead and add another Slack module. Then you can scroll down to download a file. And then for this, we're going to use the file from step number 1. Go ahead and click into this, go to files, and then you can click URL private download and click OK. Now here you need to add a filter so that we only continue if that file exists. Add a condition. You're going to look for the file, and then you just need to make sure that it exists. Pick exists, and then you can go ahead and click OK. Now the next thing we need to do is create the transcription from the downloaded file. So go ahead and go to ChatGPT, open AI, and then you're going to scroll down to create a transcription. Make sure not to pick create a translation. And then it should automatically detect that we have a file from Slack. You'll want to use the Whisper model. You can leave the prompt blank and response format as JSON. Go ahead and click OK. And then in this next module, we're going to use ChatGPT to create the main points of the audio. So we're going to look at the audio and just extract all of the main points. So I'm going to go here to create a completion. I'm going to use the new 4.0 model right here. For max tokens, you can put in 0. I'm going to go ahead and add a system message here, and then I'm going to just cut and paste this in from my other automation. You are a detail-oriented person who can extract all the details from written content. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another message. This will be a user. And then I'm going to cut and paste this in from my other automation template. And we're going to extract all the details as bullet points from the text below. And we're going to use the result from the transcription. So we see here, I'm going to go ahead and add the text. And then I will go ahead and click OK. And now from here, I'm going to go ahead and save the automation. Make sure you're saving periodically as you go, because if you leave this page, it will be lost. And then I'm just going to run everything to make sure everything is okay. I'm going to go ahead and go to choose where to start, choose manually, going to pick that top recording here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just click run. It was able to get the file, it downloaded it. Now it's creating the transcription, and now it's creating the bullet points. So if we come in here now and we take a look at the result, now we have all of the main details from the audio transcription. And I just like to use this in my future prompts to make sure that ChatGPT always uses all the details as it creates content. And now the next thing we need to do is actually create the row in Airtable to store this transcription. So I'm going to jump into Airtable. I'm going to create a new base from scratch. You have to select a workspace. I will select production. And this is what a new base looks like. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to rename the title here to Speak to Social Demo. Then I'm going to go ahead and build out this entire table from scratch. I'm going to rename this view to Spoken Word. Then I'm going to rename the table to Speak. I'm going to change this main column here, which is the primary field, to an auto-incrementing field. I'm going to call it the Speak ID. I'm going to rename the notes to Transcription. I'll leave it as a long text. I will click Save. I'm going to go ahead and delete this default field that came in when we created the table. I'll go ahead and delete this one as well. And then I'm going to create a new field for created time, just to have that as a reference. If you leave the field name blank, then it will simply just give you one for you. So that's all we need now. I'm going to jump back to the make.com automation. Now, the next thing we need to do is to create a new row in our Airtable database, create a record. Next, I need to create a connection for the new base I added in Airtable. I'm going to go to Airtable OAuth. I'm going to give the connection name speak to social demo, click save. Going to expand this window so I can see it better. I'm going to add a new base. Going to look for that base, speak to social. Here it is. I'm going to add that base. I'm going to grant access. It's going to add that connection. Then I can select the base, speak to social demo. Then I'm going to select the table, speak, and I'm simply going to drop in the transcription from the previous step. Make sure not to grab this one, which was the detailed bullet points. I'm going to grab the transcription. Then we can go ahead and click OK. Then I'm going to zoom back out just a little bit, and I'm going to rerun this just to make sure everything's working. Choose where to start, choose manually. I'm going to grab that top audio recording, click OK, run the automation. What we should see is a new row coming into our new Airtable base. While that's running, I'm going to go ahead and delete these default ones that were created. Come back to the automation. Looks like it ran to Airtable. So now we have a new row, which is our transcription. So far so good. I'm going to jump back over to make and then continue to build everything out. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a router. This allows us to create multiple paths for different automations. I'm going to add another ChatGPT completion here. In this case, we're going to write the LinkedIn post. Again, I'm going to pick the ChatGPT 4.0 model. I'm going to go ahead and add a new message. I'm going to go ahead and pick the system role. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the prompt from my template automation. I'll expand this a bit. It just simply tells the automation that you're an expert content and automation and AI expert. You like to create audio brainstorming notes for ideas and convert them into written content. And then I give it some guidelines, what the post should look like and how it should be formatted. And then some additional guidelines that I want to make sure the post has. Looks like I got a little cut off there, so I'm going to come back to my template, make sure I got everything. I don't want it to include hashtags or emojis, so I just detailed everything that I wanted for the post. Then I'm going to go ahead and add a new message. The role will be user. And then I'm going to cut and paste my prompt from my template into this message here. And it simply says, take the transcript below in quotes and write a concise LinkedIn post. And then I say, use the detailed points below as reference to make sure you included all the important details. And I do need to replace this because it was from a different automation. So I'm going to place in the text from the transcription, and then I'm going to replace this with the actual details from this previous step here. Before I can click OK, I got to add in the max tokens, put in 0, and then I'll go ahead and click OK again. And then next up, what we need to do is we need to create the actual social post in our Airtable database. So I'm going to jump back to Airtable and build out the second half of our Airtable database, which is the social side. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new table, start from scratch. We'll call this social. Go ahead and click save. Now for the primary column, I'm going to make this an auto incrementing field as well. I'm going to call this my social ID. I'll click save. I'm going to rename this to content, leave it as a long text. Go ahead and click save. I'm going to go ahead and delete these other columns and then rebuild what I need from scratch. Next, I'm going to add a platforms column. I'm going to go to single select. I'm going to type platforms. Then down here, I'm going to add a few options. I'm going to add Instagram Reel, LinkedIn, X, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so that we can differentiate between an Instagram post and a reel. Then I'll go ahead and click create field. And now we have all of those options here. Next, I'm going to create a column for type so we can keep track of that. I'm going to add another select field. We'll call it type. Here, we're going to add 3 options: text, image, and video. I'll go ahead and click create field. Now we're going to create another column for the status, another single select. We'll say review, approved, and published. We'll go ahead and click create field. Then I'm also going to create a created time, roll down here to created time. You can leave this blank, it'll make that for you. Then I'm also going to create a column for modified time, scroll down, last modified time, just so we have that. And then finally, what we need is a way to link this table back to the speak table, because every time we add a transcription, we are going to link that transcription with all of the social posts that we create for that transcription. So I'm simply going to come here. You can do it really anywhere. You can add it here if you'd like, but just so it's not at the end of the screen, I'm going to add it here. I'm going to go ahead and insert to the right. I'm going to link to another record. I'm going to link to speak. We don't need to allow to linking to multiple records. And I'm simply going to call this field speak. I'll create that field. You can go ahead and skip. And now we have this column here. And now if I jump back to the speak table, we're going to see that we also have a link to the social table. In both of these, you can hide this if you'd like, because you don't actually need to see it. Come back to social. We're going to hide this one as well. Hide field. And now we can come back to make and our automation, and we can finally create that row. Let's add the next automation here. We're going to add the Airtable row. We're going to create a record. In this case, we're going to pick the base. We're going to pick the same base again, speak to social demo. This time for the table, we are going to pick the social table. For content, we are going to use the result from this previous step. You can just grab that result. For platforms, you can uncheck this and then we can hit LinkedIn. Now in this case, I realize we need to change this field type in Airtable because we can select multiple platforms. So I'm going to come back here, going to adjust this to edit and turn this into a multiple select. I'll click save, come back to the automation, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh. But now if I turn off this map, it will allow me to add multiple values. So we have LinkedIn here. I'm going to uncheck this just so I can select it from the dropdown. Then I'm going to add another item here. I'll unselect this again so I can use the drop down. And then I'm going to pick Facebook. For the type, I'm going to unselect this map so that I can select from the drop down. I'm going to pick text. For the status, again, I'm going to uncheck this map so that I can select from the drop down, and I'm going to pick review. And then here we need to attach this specific record that we're adding to this table, social, to this previous transcription that we already created. So here we are going to add an item, and for the record ID, we are going to use the record ID that we created in step 6. So I'll go ahead and click into that. We'll click this ID here, and this should be everything that we need. We can go ahead and click OK. I'm going to go ahead and click save. We've done quite a bit of work at this point. Going to zoom back out a little bit, go back to that first module, choose where to start, choose manually, click this first object, which is the most latest recording. And then I'm going to go ahead and click and run this automation, create the transcription. Then we're going to create the details. It created the transcription row. Now it's creating the actual post. And now it created the social post in our Airtable database. So now we have a new row in our speak for that transcription. And if we jump over to social, we are now going to see our new social post. And if we click in here, we can see the content that was written from ChatGPT. I'm going to go ahead and remove these blank rows that were created in the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and just adjust the sort so that it's always putting the most recent rows on top. I'm going to do that on the speak side as well. Go to the sort, go to the speak ID. All right, so now we're rocking and rolling. Let's just keep going and get through this automation. So now we've got a couple more to build. Now we're going to go ahead and build out the tweet. So I'm going to create another ChatGPT completion here. Create a completion. Going to go ahead and use the same model here. We're going to use ChatGPT 4.0. Going to add a new message. For a role, we're going to use system. I'm going to copy in the prompt from my example. Basically, we're just saying you're an expert social media content writer and some additional guidelines that are very similar to the ones before. We'll add another message. For the role, we're going to use user. I'm going to copy this from my template automation. We're going to read in the transcription. We're going to create one concise tweet for each of the important points that we created here. I'm going to have to fix this here and make sure I'm actually grabbing the transcription, which was in step number 3. So I'm going to use step number 3 here. Click on the text. Then I need to replace this from the automation because I cut and pasted from my other automation, which is not here. So we're going to use step 4 right here. For max tokens, we're going to put 0. And then we can go ahead and click OK and continue. Now we just need to write this back to Airtable like we did before. I'm just going to go ahead and clone this and just change what I need. Might be a little bit easier. I'm going to have to change everything here. I have to replace anything that was used in this step. I'm going to have to use this step instead. So I'm going to grab this result instead of the one that was there. That's why it looked the way it did with no color. In this case, I'm going to delete these 2 platforms. I'm going to add a different platform. I'm going to uncheck this. This is an X and Twitter tweet. The type is text. We're going to leave the status in review. We can use the same transcription row that we created in Airtable. So that should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Go ahead and click save. I'm not going to test now. I'm going to go ahead and continue to build all this out, and then we'll do one final test and correct any issues that we had at that point. So I'm going to create another route there. Go ahead and align it. Going to make another ChatGPT completion. OpenAI, create a completion. Going to use the model 4.0 as always. Going to add a new message. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just use a user message. And right now what we're doing is we're creating the slide deck messages for the Instagram carousel. So I'm going to put in a prompt here, say read the transcript below and summarize it into 5 main points that are 15 words or less. So then when we create those slides, we'll have a succinct sentence on each one. Then I need to add the transcript. So I'm going to come down here and add that. For max tokens, I'm going to go ahead and put 0, and then I can go ahead and click OK. Now we need to create the Airtable record for that post. I'm going to go ahead and clone it, add it to this route here. Then let's change all the information relevant to this. Again, we're going to have to change the content. So I'm going to take that out and add the content from here. This time it's going to go to Instagram. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that, add a different platform, remove the map, and then select it here. Instagram, make sure not to pick reel. That's for the video. For type, we're going to change this to image, and then status can stay in review, and we can go ahead and click OK. So one more automation to add for this first part of this system. Now I'm going to add one more route, ChatGPT completion. Again, we're going to use the 4.0 model. We're going to add the message. For the role, I'm going to go ahead and use user. Now in this automation here, I'm building out the voiceover script for the video that we're going to create for the vertical video on Instagram Reels. So I'm going to copy over my prompt from the other automation, and I'm going to say read the transcript below and summarize it into a script that if read aloud would be 18 seconds or less. And I just said that because the B-roll video that I'm going to put this audio on top of is only 28 seconds. So I just wanted to make sure it was less than that. And then I need to add in the transcript. So we have that. Then I can put in the max tokens to 0. Go ahead and click OK. Then we need to add in the Airtable row. I'm going to straighten this out just a little bit. Clone this Airtable row, connect it up here. Then we need to fix everything. Again, we need to change the content to the content produced in this GPT. Here, I'm going to change the value of the platform to Instagram Reel. The type is going to be video, and the status will come in as review. So now I can go ahead and click OK and save it. And the reason why I'm not building the graphics or the video in this stage is so that when we add the content to our social table, we'll have a chance to update the text and the content before we click approve, and that ultimately runs the automation to push it to social media. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, back out a little bit. Let's go ahead and run this from the beginning. I'm going to choose where to start, choose manually. I'll pick the most recent voice note, click OK, and then let's go ahead and run this and see if we have any errors. It's creating the transcription. Now it created the row in Airtable of that transcription. We have that right here. Actually, that was right here. Now it's actually creating the individual posts. And now it's gone through each of the different automations, and we can see that we have those 5 new posts just created right now. So now we can format the table just a little bit, and then you can always look inside of the various pieces of content that is being created, and then you can tweak it. You can come back and you can tweak your prompts to generate the type of content that you want. We can see what platforms that everything is going to be distributed to once we set up the automations, and then we create the new make automations to create the content, to create the videos, the images, and then to actually post everything once we adjust the status to review. So on that note, just to get ready for the next step, I'm going to go ahead and create a couple more views here. I'm going to rename this one to approve. Then I'm going to duplicate this to publish, and then finally one more to published. And then I'm going to adjust the filters of each of these. I'm going to go to approve and add a filter where we only see the status of review. And then here, we want to make sure that we only see the status for approved. And then here we want to see only the status for published. That way, if we come here and we approve something, we'll see it here. And then if something's published, we'll actually see it right here. And by the way, if you're finding this video valuable, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It tells me what type of content you want more of. All right, so now let's build out the rest of the automation. All right, first, let's go ahead and save this automation. Make sure you do that. I'm gonna go ahead and rename this to Slack to Airtable. I'll save that. Then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next automation, which is going to do the auto publishing from Airtable based on the platform and the type of content it is, and once it's approved. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new scenario. And remember, if you want to get access to these blueprints, so you can simply come in and import this and click a couple buttons and have these automations completely built out and ready to go, make sure to join my new community. Link is in the description below. Now, if we're starting from scratch, then we're going to start with a webhook. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go to custom webhook. From here, you're going to go ahead and click add. You can go ahead and click save. It's going to give us a webhook. We'll come back and grab that in a second. Make sure to click OK so that it saves that step. Once you have this webhook, we can jump back over to Airtable and start building out the automation. Here we need to build out the auto publish automation that will run at some scheduled time. And what's nice about this is that instead of having to pick a scheduled time for all of the content, we can simply just create an automation that will pick one of those ready posts and we'll post it at some specific specific interval that you choose. So I'm going to go ahead and pick an interval of 1 post every day, and I'll just pick 8 a.m. You can really pick any interval that you want. Then we're going to go to the next step and find rows. In this case, we're going to find rows in the social table, and we're going to find records that are based off of a condition, and that condition is simply that the status is approved. So we're going to adjust that and pick a status approved. And then in order to test this automation, you can go ahead and click test action. Now, if you get 0 records found, that simply means that back in the data here and in this social post area, we don't have any approved content to publish. So I'm going to come back to published. I'm going to move everything that might have been here to review. So if I come up to review, we should have 5 different posts. I'm going to go ahead and start with the LinkedIn and Facebook posts. And while I'm here, I'm also noticing that I made one mistake here with the Twitter tweets, in that it didn't separate them into individual posts. So I'm going to jump back over to our automation here, and I need to add a module here that is going to split up the text from ChatGPT and convert it into multiple tweets instead of just one big piece of text. So I'm going to add a text parser here. We're going to pick match pattern. I'm going to copy in this pattern right here. We're going to move this to global match. We can select case insensitive. We can leave the rest of these as they are. And then we'll just want to take the result from the previous step and click OK. And now let's go ahead and click save. And then let's back out just a second here. And again, let's run this automation one more time. Choose where to start, choose manually, pick that first option there and click the automation. This time when it runs, it's going to create multiple Twitter posts in one ChatGPT completion. And then this is going to break it up. And as you can see, it added 3 rows to Airtable instead of just 1. So if we come back to Airtable and we see here the old one that we had, we can see the tweets were all added to one piece of content, whereas now we have multiple tweets and it broke each of those up into different pieces. Although I'm seeing one additional bug here that we need to fix. In Airtable, we need to use the results from the text parser, not this result here. So I'm just going to jump in here, and for the content, I'm going to erase that and add in this $sign. Click save. Then I'm going to go ahead and choose where we start, choose manually, click OK, and then run once. Going to run that. And then this time, when it breaks up those tweets into individual tweets, it will save the result from here and put that into Airtable instead of what I did before, which was even though I broke up the text, I still was saving this one into Airtable. So now we're creating those tweets, it breaks them apart, and now it's actually writing those individual tweets. Now we have 4 tweets and they're all different. So now that we have the correct results, I'm gonna go ahead and just delete some of these old rows here just so they're not in our way. And now we have a fresh set of results to continue building our automation here. So now I'm gonna jump back to Airtable, go back to the automation, and let's go ahead and start with the LinkedIn and Facebook post. I'm gonna go ahead and move this to approved. Now it's gonna show up in this view here. Now, if I come back to the automation, again, remember we have a automation that will run every day at 8 a.m. and then it's going to find a approved post. So now we can go ahead and test this action. And now we have this record. So now I'm going to go to the next step here and I'm going to run this script. What this script is going to do is that it's simply going to take the information from our row that we just found, the approved row, and it's going to call this webhook on make.com side so that we can continue on with the automation. So to make this work, I'm going to edit the code. I'm going to copy that code and paste it into this script area right down here. And then I'm going to come over here and we're going to add a variable. If you want to pause the video and copy this step by step, or you can jump into my new community and get the template for this entire database. I'm going to type social ID. Then for the value here, I'm going to hit this plus button. I'm going to go to this step here, find records. I'm going to scroll down to Airtable record ID. And now here I want to test that this automation is working. So I need to come back to make.com. I'm going to go back inside of this automation here and I'm going to grab this webhook. I'm going to copy address to clipboard. I'm going to jump back to Airtable and I'm going to add that URL right here where it says webhook URL. I'm going to drop it right here in the quotes. I'm going to jump back to make. I'm going to click OK and I'm going to go ahead and run once so it's waiting for a request. Jump back to Airtable. I'm going to go ahead and click test. The test ran successfully. If I jump back to make, we're going to see that we have a new request that came in and we're going to see that it passed that record ID into make, and now we can go ahead and grab that record from Airtable and continue on. And if we jump back to Airtable, we can see what's going on here is that we passed the social ID, which is that record ID from this step here where we found the record that was approved. So it's basically getting the record ID for this row that's approved. And it's this script here that calls the remote webhook here and passes this record ID here. That's why we added this variable here so that it can pass it into the script and ultimately pass it to the webhook, which allows us to access it here. If you don't understand all of that, it's not necessary, but if you just copy this exactly how I did it, it should work just fine. And now we can continue on with our automation. The next step we need to do here is to load up the record that we are working with. So I'm going to go ahead and click Airtable. I'm going to get a record. You need to make sure to pick the connection that we are using previously. I'm going to use my Speak to Social demo. For the base, you're going to pick Speak to Social. For the table, you're going to pick social. And for the record ID, you're going to use the record from step number 1 here, record ID. Then you can go ahead and click OK. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a route so that we can branch off and post to the various different platforms depending on the platform that was listed in this multi-select variable here. So let's go ahead and work on the LinkedIn and Facebook first. Here I'm going to add a new router. Here I'm going to use the LinkedIn module. You're going to want to create a user text post. If you don't already have a connection, you'll need to add that here. And then for the content, you're going to use the content from step number 3. So you can add this right here. For media type, you can leave that blank, visibility public. Pretty much everything here you can leave as default. You can go ahead and click OK. We do need to add a filter here so that only the posts that are for LinkedIn will go to LinkedIn. So go ahead and click here. Then right here, you want to add platforms from step number 3. Right here, you're going to want to scroll all the way down to the section where it's talking about array operators, because this is an array. So we need to look inside of that array and make sure it contains LinkedIn. Then we can go ahead and click OK. And now we're going to go ahead and add our Facebook post. So you can type Facebook. In this case, I'm going to post to my Facebook page. I'm going to create a post. If you don't already have a connection, you'll need to add your own connection here. Then you'll be able to select what page it is. I'm going to paste to the content engine. For the message, you're going to want to use the content from step number 3. Go ahead and pick content, and then you can go ahead and click OK. And then you'll need to add the filter. For the condition, you're going to add the platform. And then here, again, as you did before, you're going to scroll down to the array operators, contains Facebook. And again, if we go back to Airtable, you're going to see that that's just matching here, LinkedIn and Facebook. And that's exactly what we added here. That way, when this automation runs and it's for a specific platform, it only goes to those platforms. You can go ahead and click Save. Now let's just incrementally go through each of these. So this one's ready to go. So if we come back to our automation and we scroll down, we should be able to test this action. I'm going to come back to Make. I'm going to go ahead and run once. Then I'm going to come back to Airtable. I'm going to test the action, come back to Make. So now it posted to LinkedIn and it posted to Facebook. So if I go to LinkedIn and then I go to my feed, we can see that that post is right here. Here's a test I did earlier that I showed you. And then if I jump over to Facebook, we can see that I just posted to my content engine page the same post that went to LinkedIn. So now, believe it or not, we're getting near the end here. So let's just keep moving along. Now we have to build out the carousel images for Instagram. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a new route. I'm going to go ahead and set up this filter up front for the condition. Again, I'm going to pick platforms. Remember, I have to go to the bottom here. Array operators contains Instagram. Go ahead and click OK. Then I need to add an iterator. So here's the iterator. I need to iterate through each of the different slides that we created in the content here. So if we come back to our Instagram post, I'm going to go ahead and move this to publish so it's no longer here. If I come to the Instagram post here, we are going to see that we have 3 slides that we created in the content. So we need to loop through each of these and separate them to create 5 different images. I'm going to come back to the automation. So if we come here to the array and then we go to strings, we can select split. So you want to grab that split. And then here, what you want to do is you want to add the content from this stage here. So you'll come back to this star, and then we're going to add in the content right there. And then you're going to come into this little spot here. You're going to come back to the A, and you're going to add a new line. And then what that's going to do is that it's going to take this content, and every time there is a new line here, it's going to break that up so that we can create the social media graphic. So I'm going to come back to Make. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now I have to add a new module for Placid. I'm going to go ahead and click Placid. In this case, we're going to create an image. Then if you don't already have a connection, you'll need to add a connection. And the way Placid works is that you create various different types of projects. Notice here I have a project here called social graphics, and inside that I've got a few different templates. I'm going to be using this one here called the square carousel. And the way their connections work is they end up connecting to a specific project. So you can see here in my connections I have 3 different connections, and it's because I enabled 3 different projects here to be exposed to the API. So you want to make sure that you come into the project that you create that has the template that you create, and you're going to want to create an API token that allows you to connect up to make.coms. So now I'm going to go ahead and select the template. I'm going to pick the square carousel. And then for the text, I'm going to go ahead and select the value from the iterator. I'm going to leave the text color blank. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Then I can go ahead and add the next step, which is to close out the iteration. I'm closing the loop here. And so for the source module, I'm going to go ahead and pick the first stage of the iterator, and I'm going to click OK. So in order to properly configure this iterator here, I need to add this step so that we can configure it here. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the Instagram post right now. I'm going to go ahead and click Instagram for Business. I'm going to create a carousel post. If you don't already have a connection, you're going to need to add one. I've already have my Facebook connection. It actually connects through a Facebook page through to your Instagram account. There's instructions on how to do that here and here. Now, in order to save this, I do need to put in some dummy values here. So I'm going to go ahead and add an image. And then for the photo URL, I'm going to use http test.com image.jpg. I'm going to cut and paste this. We're going to come back and replace that, but we just need this for a second. Then I'm going to go ahead here and add another item, an image. I'm going to put that same test here so that I can save it. And now I'm going to go ahead and save this automation. I'm going to come back up to Airtable. In this case, I'm going to move our Instagram post from review to approved. So I'm going to come back to the automation and find records. So you need to click find records, and we're going to test this action so that it finds the new Instagram post. If you don't click test, it's going to reuse the LinkedIn and Facebook post from before. Then I'm going to come back to make.com. I'm going to go ahead and click run once. If you ever get this notice, it's just telling you that there's already something in the queue. There's something waiting here. In this case, I'm going to wait for new data so that I don't get old data that may not be what I want. Wait for new data. I'm going to come back to Airtable. I'm going to click this run a script. I'm going to test that action. Going to jump back to make. We see that it's now going down the path for Instagram. It's creating the images. It's going to create all 5 of those images. Once it creates those, it may try to post that to Instagram, but it's going to error out because of the dummy data we gave it. You'll see that it errored out, which is fine. But really what we wanted was we wanted the test data here so that we can properly configure these last 2 steps. So now I'm going to jump into the iterator here. And now for target structure type, I'll now be able to add the Instagram for Business files array, and then we can configure what do we want to send to the media type. And in this case, we're going to select image. And then for that photo URL, we are going to use the image from Placid. So you can use the image URL, and then we can go ahead and click OK. And now we can come back to this module and properly configure it. We can remove these 2 items. Then we can move this to map. And for this field here, we can simply use the array from that iterator. And it's going to set up all the data properly so that it'll properly post to Instagram and map in the proper fields, what type of media it is, and the image URL from Placid. We can go ahead and click OK. We can go ahead and click save. Now I can go ahead and click run once again. Again, I'm always just going to wait for new data. Jump back to Airtable. I'm going to go ahead and run that test again. Jump back to make.com. Now it's creating the images. I'll go ahead and load up Instagram just so it's ready. Going to go to my profile. We already posted a carousel previously today, but we should now see another one once this is done. Creating that 5th image, and now it's posting it to Instagram. It should just take a second. Looks like that was successful. So if I jump back to Instagram and refresh the page, we now see a new carousel was automatically posted, and it's got those 5 pages that was created from that original audio post that we made way back in Slack. All right, so we're in good shape now. Now we just got a couple little automations to add. I'm gonna go ahead and click save. Now I'm gonna jump back to Airtable. I'm gonna go ahead and move the Instagram to published. And now let's go ahead and move forward with the Instagram reel. These tweets are quite easy. And I'm going to move this to approved. That way we can go into the automation. I'm going to move back to find records, and I'm going to test the automation so that it pulls in the Instagram reel for testing. So now we have that ready for when we want to run the script. Now I'm going to jump back to make.com. I'm going to add another route. I'm going to go ahead and start with 11 labs. This is going to allow us to create a speech synthesis from AI. In this case, I've already preloaded 11 labs with my voice so that when I pass it text, it will create a audio track with my given voice. You can check out how to do that using 11 labs. I'm going to go ahead and select the the 11 Labs multilingual version 2. Then for the text, I'm going to pass it the content, and then I'm going to click OK. And then before I forget, I'm going to add the filter here. The condition is on this platform, and then I'm going to change this to the array operators contains Instagram Reel, which again is what we have right here, Instagram Reel. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to go ahead and straighten this out, and we can continue on with the automation. Just going to double check that I have everything set up right in 11 Labs. I think on this model here, I'm actually going to pick 11 Labs multilingual version 2, this one here, not the STS. I think that will cause an error. I'm going to go ahead and select that here, click OK. I'm going to go ahead and test where we are right now just to make sure that this works here. I'm going to save, then I'm going to go down here to run once. I'm going to jump back to Airtable, and now that we have our Instagram Reel in the approved section, I'm going to jump to the automation. If you haven't already, you want to make sure you find that record using the test here. Make sure that's the one that comes up in step number 2. Then you can actually run this script here and test it. Jump back to make.com. It's going to run that synthesis. You want to make sure that it came back with the actual data. Now what we need to do is we need to save that audio in Google Drive. So I'm going to add a Google Drive connection here. I'm going to upload a file. If you don't already have a connection, you want to add that. I'm going to go ahead and just use a folder that I've been using for testing. You can create any folder on your Google Drive. I have one here from Speak to Social. You grab this ID up here in the URL. Make sure to grab the entire ID. Copy that. Go back to your automation. Drop that in the folder. It should link up the file from the previous step. You can click OK. Then we need to create a public share link for that file. So go ahead and add the next step. I'm going to go to Google Drive. You want to get a share link. You can use your drive, select your file. For file ID, we're going to use the step before here in step 13, file ID. The role is reader. For type, we're going to say anyone with the link. We should be good to go there. You can go ahead and click OK. Then in this next step, we are going to actually call JSON to video.com. You can create an account here to get an API key. Then on this step here, we're going to create an HTTP module. We're going to make a request. For the URL, you can use this here. You're going to use the post method. For the headers, you're going to add in your API key. And then for body type, you are going to pick raw. Content type, you are going to pick JSON. And then for the request content, you are going to drop in this entire piece of code just like this. Just for easy copying and pasting, I will put this in the description below. But if you want access to this, then make sure to jump into my new community that's linked in the description. I'll give you the make.com files, the Airtable database, and all of these different pieces that we're putting into these automations. Here, we do need to replace a couple values. In order to create this vertical video, I do have this vertical B-roll footage of me sitting at my desk. It's just simply me moving around and doing a couple things. You can use whatever you want, but you do need to grab that ID from that file. So if you open this up and you go to share, you also want to make sure that you make this publicly available. So make sure you change that to anyone with a link. And then if you copy that link and then put that into your browser, you should be able to copy that ID straight from here. Make sure you copy the ID, everything after the slash and up until the slash. Don't include any slashes. So you want to take that ID that you copied. You want to replace that ID here right after the equal sign and up until that little ampersand. Just remove everything here and paste in your ID. And then down a little bit lower where you see the audio and the source, you want to copy the link from this previous step, the share link from this step here. Go ahead and copy that in. Although if you haven't run this automation yet, that value might not be there. So you can feel free to use the link from step number 13, which is going to be the web content link. You can actually type that in here. It does look like it's showing up here in step number 14. So you can go ahead and copy that. Make sure you click that link so it goes right in between those two quotes. Put your cursor there, click that, then you should be good to go. You can go ahead and then move this to parse response is yes. Go ahead and click OK. Now let's go ahead and just click save and make sure everything is working. I'm going to zoom back out a bit and then click run once. Then I'm going to jump back to Airtable and trigger this step one more time. Should come into make and then come down to 11 Labs. It's creating the voice. It's uploading the file. It's creating the share link. And now it's calling JSON to video. If you open this up, you should see a status code of 200. That means that you cut and paste the code correctly and you properly replaced the web share links and the Google Drive links for the B-roll video and the audio that you saved from 11 Labs. Now we can go ahead and continue on. I'm going to go ahead and add a sleep to this section here. Once you call this call here, JSON to video is going to be building that video in the background. So we need to take a quick pause and let that finish. So I'm going to type sleep. I'm going to go to the tools here. I'm just going to go ahead and put 90 seconds and then click OK. We're almost done. Then we need to make one more HTTP call to get the video so that we can actually call Instagram. So I'm going to add one more step here. HTTP. I'm going to make a request. For the URL, I'm going to cut and paste this URL here. We can leave this as a GET. For the headers, we need to add our API key. Again, you would get that from creating an account at JSON to video. In this case, we need to add a query string. For the name, we're going to add project. And for the value, we're going to use something that was returned in this previous step from our test. You should see the output just like this because we told make.com to parse the response with a yes. So here you're going to use the project. And again, here you're going to want to use parse response yes, and then you can go ahead and click OK. And now we can run this manually just to see if the video was properly created by coming over to this response, coming back to the data here and grabbing this project ID. Just select everything there, copy it, and then come to this and do a run this module only. It's going to ask you for that project ID. Go ahead and paste that in there and click OK. Should run that module. Go ahead and open this up. Should see a status code of 200. I can go into the data here. I can go into the movie. I can grab this URL straight from this section here, copy it. I can go to my browser, put that in there. Here the video pops up. We can see the captions and it's using the audio from 11 Labs, which was my synthesized voice.
Mistakes to avoid in using AI in business. First, don't ignore AI. Staying out of the loop sets you back.
All right, let's keep going. We're almost done here. And then in this last step here, we simply need to call Instagram to make that post, Instagram for business. We're going to create a real post. We want to connect up your connection. And for the video URL, we're going to use the video in the previous step. Go ahead and go into step 17, movie, and there's the URL. You can leave the caption and these other things blank. You could, of course, create automations to fill those in if you would like. Go ahead and click OK. Now let's go ahead and make sure you save that. Let's do one final test. Let's go ahead and run this. Jump back to Airtable and run that trigger. It's creating that audio, calling JSON to video. Now it's going to pause for 90 seconds. Now that it's done sleeping, it's made the request to get that file, and now it's making the post to Instagram. It might just take a few minutes for that upload to take place. Looks like that is done. So if I jump back to Instagram, refresh my page, jump down to Reels, we're going to see that new video was just posted 20 seconds ago. We got the B-roll, we've got the captions, and we've got my AI generated voiceover.
On current AI models. Be ready to adapt to new advancements quickly. Embrace changes and continually
Amazing. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. Make sure you do that. And let's just finish this out really quick. We have a very simple one to add at this point. I'm going to add 2 more routes. One of them is just simply to mark any of these given posts that we're creating as published so that that's done automatically. So I'm going to go ahead and add that right now. You want to make sure it's this final automation because that's going to be the one that runs last. Just going to click into here, go to Airtable. I'm going to update a record. Going to pick the base, speak to social. For table, we're going to pick social. For the record ID, we're going to use the record ID from the webhook. And then we're going to just jump down here to status. Going to remove the map and we will pick published, select OK. Go ahead and save that, rearrange the automation. And now all we need to do here is post our automation for Twitter. So I'm going to go in here to the condition and add in platforms. And then I'm going to change this down here to array operators contains. And then remember for Twitter, we go to approve platform is x/Twitter. So I'm going to come back to the automation x/Twitter. I'll go ahead and click OK. Then I'm going to come back to Airtable. I'm going to go to publish. I'm going to move the Instagram reel test to published. Then I'm going to go back to approve and move one of these tweets to approved. I'm going to go to the automation. I'm going to reselect a new approved automation, test action. We should see the tweet pop up. Now I'm going to jump back to make. I'm going to add the Twitter module right here. We're going to create a post. Now setting up Twitter is a little bit more complicated. Make sure to check out these help pages. It will show you how to create an app and connect up to Twitter. It's a little confusing, but it's not that hard. If you'd like another video on that, let me know. As long as you follow their instructions, you should be good. Now we can come back in here to the text content. We're just going to add content. We can go ahead and click OK. We can click save. I'm going to auto align everything again as well. I'm going to go ahead and run this once. Jump back to Airtable, go to run a script. Let's test this action. It's going to come in. It's going to send that to Twitter. And notice it's also going to move that post out of the publish automatically. Now it's going to be in publish, so we don't have to do that on our own. Here's that. Now we just need need to go to Twitter to see the new Twitter post that we just came out with 19 seconds ago. Now what we need to do is come back to Airtable. We're going to go to this automation. We're going to turn it on. We're going to adjust our schedule as needed. Going to come back to our original make.com automation that searches for new audio from Slack. We'll turn that on. We'll come back to this automation that we just built. We'll turn that on. And now the next time we come in here and make a new audio recording, that will be loaded up by this automation. And keep in mind that this automation will run every 15 minutes. If you want it to run sooner, you can adjust that. Just keep in mind that every time that this automation runs, it does use one of your make operations. So you want to be conscious of that. But that will trigger the entire process. It will create the transcription. It will create all of the different posts. After you review them and approve them, this automation, once you turn it on, will automatically pull them in at the given schedule. And we'll call this automation, which will send and create the various pieces of content that we need and publish them to the various platforms. And again, if you want to just get access to these make.com blueprints so you can just download them and upload them and just install that Airtable automation so that you can get this up and running in just a couple minutes, make sure to join the No Code Architects. The link is in the description below. Click on that, join. You can get access to these right away. This is a brand new community. I'm excited to see you there. And either way, I'll see you in the next video.